This is the Sunday night Longhorn Livestream. I'm Bobby Burton, your host, joined by CJ Vogel and Rod Babers, both of On Texas Football. Guys, appreciate you joining me on this Sunday night. It's been an interesting weekend right now. Longhorns hosting two official visitors over the weekend. News that we first broke here on Texas Football. CJ Daniels, wide receiver, young man, originally from Lilburn, Georgia, Parkview. Caught passes from Caden Slater up at Liberty this past year. He's been down in Austin all day. He's expected to go home this afternoon. And then Jamari Caldwell, the big defensive lineman out of the University of Houston by way of South Carolina, has been in town apparently. I have not heard, although some people are saying that there may be a lean right now of Jamari Caldwell elsewhere. I have not heard that quite yet. Daniels, by the way, visited both Auburn and Florida over the weekend prior to Texas. So he had a heck of a busy weekend. That's going on. And then obviously the big news yesterday, JT Sanders electing to go pro, the tight end out of Texas, ended his Texas career with 99 receptions. Longhorns still waiting on some news right now from Jahdae Barron. This one we thought a year ago, I thought he was probably headed pro. Ended up being a Thorpe semifinalist, but did not have necessarily a breakout year, was injured much of the year. He's, according to CJ yesterday, he was 50-50 whether or not he would return to the Longhorns. Rod and CJ, that catches us up on a lot of the big news. But Rod, I want to go to you first. Ryan Watts declares for the NFL draft rather than return to Texas or enter the transfer portal. What do you think about Ryan Watts and his decision to move on?
I'll admit I'm a little surprised by it. I think, this is a guy that can increase his draft stock tremendously. First of all, by potentially showing that he could play safety with his length and with his size and physique. He's a guy that lacks the top end speed to be a corner, be a straight up cover corner. He lacks the top end speed. He's a really good football player. I mean, I like him as a football player, which is why I thought the option to switch to safety potentially, or at least to show that he has that kind of versatility, actually would increase his draft stock long term. So he believes he's got, he's getting information. He's getting some advice that, hey, going to the league is probably best for you than going back to school or hitting the transfer portal. So I wish him luck. I think he's a good football player, but I do think at the next level, playing corner might be a bit of a challenge unless he's in the right system, the perfect system for him, where they play a lot of zone coverage, ask their cornerbacks to be run force defenders. Those are his strengths, I think, in just straight up man situations, which most NFL teams have to do a lot of times. I think that's where Ryan Watts struggles. I will say at the line of scrimmage, though, and kind of the look at the bump and run coverage and press coverage, he actually is a really good press corner at the line of scrimmage. It's once you get past the line of scrimmage, if you can, versus Ryan Watts. His hips aren't as flexible. I think that's where he actually struggles getting in and out of those breaks, and I think that's where you actually can take advantage of him. So if he can improve on that, and maybe that's something that he can show in training camp in the NFL, which I definitely think he'll get in the training camp, I think that's when, maybe he's got a chance to play in the league, but I do think coverage is going to be a struggle for him when he first gets to the league.
Rod, do you see him making a team? Do you see him being an undrafted free agent? Is that the general thought process?
Yeah, because I'm thinking if a team is going to draft him, they're not drafting him for coverage. So they're drafting him as a project, or they're drafting him to be scheme specific. I'm just trying to think about, and I got to do some research, how many schemes around the league I'm sure, and there are some, by the way. I'm not saying there aren't any. There are some schemes that could use a cornerback like Ryan Watts, but these days, more and more, there are teams that relying on coverage, and they want guys that can cover at every position. So I think undrafted free agent, I definitely think is a guy that can get a shot at making an NFL roster. I just wonder at cornerback, is that going to be the place he's going to end up at?
Got it. Here's a comment that I agree with here. One thing that is interesting about Ryan Watts is that I don't recall him playing on any special teams for Texas. Not having that experience and game success might be a factor in his NFL potential. I could definitely see that being a part of his game and an issue perhaps. Hey, CJ, what does this do, though, for the roster and the depth chart at Texas going forward?
Well, it certainly makes the decision for cornerback a lot easier for next year. You know, Texas has two really good young cornerbacks right now that we saw glimpses from this year, Terrence Brooks and obviously Malik Muhammad as well. There's going to be a lot of additions to this defensive back room as well. And so when you talk about kind of the rotations that Texas has been using and deploying so far this year, it's going to be a lot of youth and inexperience. I know Gavin Holmes is also in the conversation, but aside from the three of those guys that we just mentioned, it's going to be a lot of new faces. So will we see a decrease in rotations and in time swapping guys in and off or on and off the field? I think that's kind of the conversation that you'll start to see early in 2024, especially as things really start grooving into the SEC play. But for now, you're sitting back. If you're Terry Joseph and Pete Kwiatkowski sitting back saying, you know what, Manny Muhammad, Terrence Brooks, like the job is y'all's. Like go play. And so it certainly helps their decision make a lot easier.
Let me ask you a question on this. And I think that this is a good question for me, I guess, as much as anything right now, CJ, and you and Rod. At what point does Texas need, and how badly do you think they need another defensive back in the portal? And the reason I'm asking is because they're definitely trying to look for one right now. Okay. But I mean, they're not, there's no definite takes in there. The one that would be is a guy from North Carolina State, but he's not a grad transfer. He's already a senior, going to be a fifth-year senior. So how does Texas need, in y'all's opinion, another DB if Jahdae Barron comes back, or if he doesn't come back? Like, is that a turning point for you guys, Rod or CJ?
I think it is. To real quick, Rod, I think you'll be on the same page as me. But if Jahdae comes back, I think your secondary, for the most part, is complete with what you have. Obviously, contingent upon him coming back, but you now have the versatility with Jahdae and Andrew Makuba, with two guys that you can, like you said, you can move back and forth in that three safety wheel or pendulum, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know who your cornerbacks, for the most part, are going to be. There's obviously going to be a lot of youth coming in as well, but looking at the safety position specifically, it's going to be youth. It's going to be inexperience unless Jahdae comes back. Makuba, Taffy's back there, and you're expecting Xavier Filsaime to play, often as well in there with Derek Williams. So that's kind of, in my eyes, I think it's a set in stone secondary right now if Jahdae comes back. If he does not, I think there is a need for someone else in the portal to come in and be a Gavin Holmes or be a guy that you can come in and see meaningful, reliable snaps from.
Yep. I look at it and I see something there that's very interesting in that Brooks, you talk about the starting secondary if Barron returns. There's been some talk too, even though Makuba played some safety and played nickel the last 2 years, some people think Barron might be better at safety than at star or at corner. Rod, do you think that he would get a look at safety as a senior or as a returner, or no?
I've been saying it. I do think he can play safety. And I think you should actually cross-train him just to manufacture depth and to give yourself more solutions to possible problems you can encounter, whether it be depth problems, whether it be performance issues in the secondary, or whether it be a team trying to isolate matchups with your safeties. As CJ just mentioned, and I've talked about it, you want those safeties to almost be interchangeable with the nickel because teams are trying to do 3-by-1 sets, formation in the boundary, trying to isolate those coverage liabilities at safety. If Jahdae Barron comes back, man, you don't really have that. I mean, he comes back, Makuba and both Jahdae Barron can both play safety and nickel. Derek Williams, I think, even though he hasn't done it, I think his skill set projects to a guy that can play nickel if you need him to. And that's basically what you want, your safeties that can play nickel too. And then you can kind of, those guys can kind of rotate if they need be based on a team trying to hunt matchups against you. So, yeah, I think you should cross-train them. I came up in the Kena secondary, where the 5-tool DB was what all he preached. And, I came up with guys who played corner, started out at corner and played safety, guys who played safety and then switched to corner, whether that's Quinn Jammer, Ahmad Brooks, Nathan Vasher. I mean, those are the guys I played with. That's the kind of secondary. I played nickel when I first came and switched to corner. I think that, I think Sark is going there too, based on the introductory press conference from the recruiting class and those 5 DBs he talked about in Makuba. That's the route that I think they want to go anyway. Jahdae Barron could possibly actually be maybe he is a better safety than a nickel. It's possible. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that at all, because maybe this is a guy with high football IQ. He wants to be a defensive coordinator. Right, when he came up, he wants to be a coach. He's got really high football IQ. At the nickel position, everything happens quick, happens fast. Closer you are to the football, faster the action happens. Now, his great football instincts still give him great jumps on the football, on wide receiver screens, being able to be a force run defender on the outside, set the edge, all those things. But if you back him up a little bit, and with that football IQ, give him a better perspective, give him a better viewpoint. Are you talking about giving him more of a 30,000-foot view of things? Oh, man, I actually do think he might end up making more plays potentially. He might end up making more splash plays from that position, because I bet that nickel, things happen really fast. At safety, I've been told that, hey, there's time to process. There's time. You got now time is talking about seconds, milliseconds, but still more time than you have at nickel. Nickel, it's gone. That's why he reacts so quickly. That's why teams are getting him on double moves and out and ups and things that, you know what I mean, that what I call the counter clues, because he knows things happen so quickly. So he has no fear and no hesitation. When he sees a clue, when he sees a key, he goes boom immediately, and that's good at nickel. But lately, actually, the last 2 games of the season, teams were picking on him. Right, Oklahoma State, Washington picked on him, because by then there's enough sample size to know this guy's he's a C key, C clue go guy. All right, so just give him the clue, give him the red meat, and then you may be able to actually get expose him a little bit and take advantage of him and get the better of him. But the truth is, man, Jahdae Barron is so damn solid. He's so damn solid. It took teams 12 damn games to figure out how to get the best of him, and they did. They finally did it. But these were Jahdae specific plays. Like, we're going after this guy with this play because we seen him on this play make this specific, move and have this technique, and his eyes are in this place. Guys, trust me, everybody can get got in this game. All right, there's only a few all goats that don't get got. Those are the Derek Johnsons of the world, those kind of freaks, Michael Huffs of the world. For the most part, everybody's got a weakness, and Jahdae Barron came after him a little bit. I had been saying before that I was like, I don't know why teams don't do double moves on him. He's so damn. He's like a rabid dog out there, man. He's going after anything that crosses his damn face, and he's great at it. But every now and then, just give him something that crosses his face and let that be a counter clue. And teams are doing that. But I think Jahdae Barron would be great, safety or nickel, really would.
I want to go now. Thanks for that insight, Rod. I want to go now to some portal recruiting news. John Adams has a good question here. At the tight end position, is there any movement on Holden Stays, the formerly of Notre Dame, now committed to the University of Tennessee? Adams, John, just so you know, Holden had been told that if Ja'Tavion Sanders decided to go pro, that Texas would circle back. I do not know if they've circled back quite yet. That news came out yesterday afternoon for JT Sanders. He told the Texas staff, and they knew about it. I don't know if they've made re-engaged with Stays quite yet, or if Stays is even willing to listen going further. Another name out there has been Yurich, a tight end out of Stanford. Jordan Jolly, a tight end out of Connecticut, also in there as well. Texas will be looking for a tight end in the portal with the loss of Ja'Tavion Sanders. Will they find one? That's a different story. That's one that we have to worry about. All right, guys, next I want to talk about Johnny Nansen. That is the new linebacker coach hire. Co-defensive coordinator is his official title at Texas. Guy that has known Steve Sarkisian, coached with him at both Washington and Southern Cal. His daughter is on the football staff and the events portion of the football staff. She's a student at Texas, originally came, I believe, as a swimmer to the university. But he returned, or he's now going to be in Austin. He's great friends with Steve Sarkisian. Jeff Banks, he also knows from his time at Washington State. He was the play caller at Arizona. He will not be the play caller, though, in Austin. Will be the linebackers coach. He's been a linebackers coach, defensive end, edge coach, as well as defensive tackle coach before. Interesting move here from Steve Sarkisian. And I think it's a recruiting move as much as anything, guys. It's another Southern California guy on his staff at a time when Texas has a chance to kind of poke its head over there and really get some guys away from people. CJ, talking about recruiting, what are your thoughts on this move? And, that gives Texas really 3 guys in the recruiting staff that are positioned in Southern California, not only with Sark, but Jeff Banks, as well as now Johnny Nansen.
Yeah, absolutely. The West Coast specifically is going to see, great improvements. Not that it, was lagging in any sort of, sort of the word, but the West Coast recruitment under Johnny Nansen, especially in the poly community, is going to see much, significant improvements. He's a guy who had deep ties into the poly communities. You saw Leonga Lafau actually tweet out right after he was hired, a bit of a affirmation, some happiness, if you will, from Leonga Lafau. I know Cecilia Kana was a guy who was recruited a little bit by him as well. So that's going to help Texas a lot. Bobby, you've obviously mentioned Jeff Banks, Chris Jackson, Sarkisian. Texas is going to be able to recruit the West Coast, not only California, but going up to Washington, down to Arizona as well. That's a lot of ties, a lot of doors that were already creaking open right now that are now about to swing open as a result of Johnny Nansen joining this staff. So I agree with what you said. This is not just a big move for the Texas defense, the linebacker specifically, but in the recruiting trail as well. He's very respected out west. He has a lot of ties, a lot of inroads out there. It's one of those things where Texas wants to recruit nationally, and they've done it very well so far. This is only going to further those efforts and help them when they go out west and find those guys from, schools like Mater Dei, which we've seen so often.
I talked to someone on the Arizona staff yesterday about Johnny Nansen. He had texted me. Look, Texas, he is considered a really good coach, a good person, well-liked not only by the staff, but also players on the team. He seems, at least from what I'm gathering from my intel, talking to folks at Arizona, like a culture fit for Steve Sarkisian. He's not too young. He's not too old. He's got a feel for what he's trying to do. At the same time, I'm excited about this one because I think it does bring that poly connection, to your point, CJ. It also brings the Southern California connection. By the way, he's born in Samoa. So it's not fake poly or anything like that. It's the real deal. And then he played high school ball at Long Beach, Jordan. So that's right in the middle of LA, just about. Whereas Sark's more from the north side and Chris Jackson more from the Orange County area. So that kind of gives them that whole little corridor in LA to consider. All right, I'm going to start taking some more questions here, talking about this. Aloha Travel. Any more rumors of the Stanford tight end? I'm running some checks on that right now to hear if there's any kind of reciprocal interest. This is a guy, Ben Yurich is a guy that was a Mackey Award preseason candidate this year, elected to return to Stanford despite having, a chance to go elsewhere with the new coach, Troy Taylor. Now he's going to go ahead and enter the portal, has entered the portal, could be a guy for Texas. He is a grad transfer. That's an important category because I'm telling you guys, one of the things that I'm getting asked here is the academic situation at Texas. It's not just at Texas that the Longhorns have these problems, but if you're a 4th or 5th year senior, and not a grad transfer, you have to have a certain amount of hours that go toward your degree at the University of Texas to be considered eligible for playing. And so University of Texas requires your final 60 hours to be from the University of Texas. So there's a makeup level there done on some hours that players have to get to. So that's why there's sometimes there's an academic holdup. They got to figure out exactly what they're going to do. It happened not only with Andrew Makuba a little bit, CJ, but I talked to Trey Morris person, and it happened with him too. It is a obstacle, so to speak, that they have to work through compared to other teams that may not have that sort of issue. So something that we definitely need to talk about. All right, hey, guys, this one, we talked about JT Sanders and Ryan Watts leaving. Barron Sorrell and Jake Majors announced they're returning. Majors never was really a NFL prospect. Sorrell wasn't either, based on what I was told. I was told he was an undrafted free agent or a 7th rounder, 6th rounder at best. But apparently he was flirting with the NFL as well. I mean, what do y'all make of that? I mean, Rod, I know you deal with the draft and have been drafted yourself. What do you think about these two guys returning? And do you think it was smart in particular for Sorrell? Did he need another year?
I think he did. I mean, I think he's a guy that can, play in the NFL and one day be drafted, of course. But I do think in order for him to increase his draft stock, he's got to show that he can make more splash plays on defense. Right? Show that he can be more of an impact player. He's a consistent player. All right. And he's a good player. But I think in the NFL, they want to see him go above and beyond and be a splash. But I think he's got to show he's got better pass rush moves. He's already shown he's going to improve as a pass rusher. I think he got to show he's gotten better every year. That's what I like about Barron Sorrell's game too. I mean, he's a guy that's gotten better every year. From behind the scenes, you talk to players and they talk about how he's transformed his body. And that just shows you a lot of work ethic. He's putting in the work. He could actually be tracking to have a breakout year, and he should coming back. So I think he's got to show he's got some impact, some of that splash player in him. And he hasn't done it enough. You've seen flashes of it. I want to see him do it more. And Jake Majors, I mean, honestly, the truth is, I just don't know how much he's going to increase his draft stock overall coming back. Just as a center is tough. It really is. But I do think he can come back and improve as a player. Now draft stock and play different situations, guys. Trust me. What draft is all about your potential and all about the measurements and all that. And that center, that's tough, right, for you to improve on. I mean, he's going to measure what he's going to measure. Him running the 40 time and benching he's only going to got so much strength. It is what it is. What he wants to do is put better film out there and more consistent film. That's what he's coming back for. So as a center, you're not going to show out, at workouts. Barron Sorrell actually might. He might go out there and take his shirt off, and then, trust me, you go to the combine. People don't know. You talk about this. You go to the combine, man. The coaches are catcalling. They looking at you like, "Ooh, man, look at them backs. Oh man, he's got that high booty on him. I like that." I mean, they really are. I mean, you don't think that, but these are grown men that get really excited about a man with 6 packs. All right, so that Barron Sorrell actually can go out there, transform his body, and work out really well, increase his draft stock. Majors can't do that, but he's coming back to put better stuff on film and more consistent stuff on film, especially, guys, this matters, versus the SEC. That really matters. Film, coaches want to see film against other NFL players. They don't want to see you, basically go out there and dog some, I ain't gonna say a scrub or a brony, but a player that's not at your level. They want to see you go out there and perform against a player that's at your level or better than you. All right, based on their evaluation. And Jake Majors is going to see a lot of that in the SEC. And he believes in himself. That's why he's coming back. That's what he's coming to do. And I think that's more what, Jake Majors is banking on. And I agree with you. I think Jake Majors is going to smart to do that because he's going to have some great film. If he plays as consistently as he has so far in the SEC, better level of competition. But if he does, oh, man, NFL draft scouts, trust me, they're going to be salivating over it.
I love that idea that I think both of them needed a return, Rod. I just Majors for your reasons. Plus, I mean, I think I'm told from inside the building that he's one of the smarter guys on the team, period. Very cerebral. He's going to go get his MBA at Texas.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you get into the Texas. Yeah, exactly. You get into that school. I mean, you're going to end up with a 6-figure salary. Whether whether it's in the NFL or somewhere else. So good for him, right? I mean, I think everybody would just, say little.
Yeah.
Not just a golf clap, but a clap, right?
Yeah.
As far as Sorrell is concerned, the interesting thing there to me is I keep going back to how much he's improved physically each and every year. When he got on campus, CJ, I know you were there too, and we watched him in his very first practices, and you were like, man, is this guy ever going to get big enough? I mean, you really were, Rod. He was 215, maybe 220 at the most. Now he looked raw boned, right? But you're like, man, he's got a ways to go. And I think that he's been a quiet leader on this team because he he lets his work do the show for him as opposed to be the talker. I think that the piece here is that he could end up getting even 10 to 15 more pounds on that frame, and then he starts looking more like a third, fourth, fifth round pick as opposed to a seventh or an undrafted free agent with another year of seasoning. CJ, do you see that the same way? You have a little different take.
I think the frame and what he brings to the table physically is on par with guys that get taken. I think right now he's about 6'3.5", 265, right in that range. You see guys taken at that size pretty often. I don't think he's necessarily on the highest part of the spectrum height-wise, but that's, more or less not the point. Arm length is fine. I'm more with you, Rod. I think the production needs to significantly see an increase in consistency. I actually thought it was a bit of a step backwards this year for Barron Sorrell, more so off of what I thought was a very good sophomore campaign. 5.5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. Really, it's the first time I'm seeing him take extended snaps. Only 4 sacks this year. I don't think he had more than 5 tackles for loss the entire year. So a bit of a 50% decrease from a year ago. That's not what you want to see from a now upperclassman who is hoping to take that NFL jump. I think, like you said, Rod, going into the SEC, if he's able to put out big-time film against top-tier talent, that's only going to help him. He's going to have the frame, like you said, Bobby. He's going to be able to add 5 or 10 more pounds. He's going to be able to step into the combine or a pro day setting, take off his shirt, and wow everybody up there. That's just kind of the body and the build that he was able to grow and develop into. But it's got to be the on-field play. The eye in the sky never lies. And right now, I think you can go back and watch that 2023 film for him and say there was still a lot of meat on the bone that he can come back for and start chewing away at. So I think that's something that certainly needs to see an improvement on. Like we've talked about the entire year, the Texas Edges need to see more improvement. They need to see more of a factor in games. It starts with Barron Sorrell next year, and then I certainly think he'll be in that conversation, for a late day 2 pick or early day 3 pick.
All right, that's CJ Vogel, Rod Babers. This is the Sunday night live stream here on Texas Football. Appreciate you guys joining us. Newsworthy weekend for the Longhorns. This is very interesting because the drop dead date right now for players to enter the NFL draft is January 15th. So what's the timeline for Jahdae Barron? It's January 15th. What's the timeline for other Longhorns that might be tempted by the NFL draft? January 15th. One guy has been asked about here, and I want to make sure people know, Jaylen Ford is definitely leaving to go to the NFL draft. He leaves tomorrow, I believe, to go to Phoenix is where he's going to train with his workout folks. So be aware of that. Jaylen Ford definitely going as well. That was a guy that, man, if he would have come back, it would have maybe even made the defense look even that much stronger if Jahdae Barron also came back here. This is one from Dark Borg. Rod's former teammate, I think he means Michael Huff, should put a bug in Sark's ear to bring in Dwayne Aina with Nansen as a consultant. What do you think? That would you think Dwayne might come back as an analyst? He's an analyst right now at
Arizona. Yeah, I mean, he's an analyst at Arizona, and the defensive coordinator from Arizona is coming here to be the co-DC and linebackers coach. I mean, I don't know. I think Coach Aina does like Texas. He likes Austin. All right, has connections here. That family that was here for a long time. I think it's a natural fit. So if I'm Sark, I would at least inquire. I would do some research on and see if he was still interested in coming back to Texas. Coach Gideon knows Coach Aina really well too, because Coach Gideon played under Coach Aina, and he knows the same things about Coach Aina that I do. Coach Aina is very unselfish. He wouldn't come in with an ego. He wouldn't come in trying to call any shots or anything like that. He'd come in really just trying to help out. He's really a egoless, selfless person, period. But definitely when it comes to being a coach, I think it's a no-brainer, man. I hope they all, Coach Gideon, Sark, Coach Nansen, I hope they all on that. That would be, to me, it could be one of the ways to help you solve some of your past from your past defense issues. And, I do think he could come in with some different ideas on how to help develop these young guys into more versatile defenders, better coverage defenders overall, and turn them into students of the game. The only reason I see the game the way I do is because of Coach Aquino. That's it. Before Coach Aquino, I did not see the game the way I do now. He took me into the Matrix. Whatever the red pill or the blue pill, he gave me one of them. Which one made you see the Matrix? Which one was it, CJ? The red pill or the blue pill? Which one was it?
I don't know, Neo.
All right, whichever one it was, it made you actually see the reality of the Matrix. Coach Aquino gave it to me. Then I saw it. I was like, oh, this is okay. I get it now. And he can do that, I think, for a lot of guys on that campus.
The blue pill means something else these days, Rod. The blue pill means something else these days. Hey, this is Breeze. I've had a couple of questions here in the chat about Gavin Holmes and him returning. As of Friday, he definitely was. So, if something happened in the last 48 hours, that would be news to me. But as of Friday, he was definitely expected to return. CJ's mentioned it. He's one of the 3 corners that Texas thinks they can rely on and get that situation under control along with Manny Muhammad and Terrence Brooks in the wake of, obviously, Ryan Watts electing to go pro yesterday. Hey, guys, we're getting a lot of defensive secondary questions, so I'm going to stay on it right now. Chase Russell, McDonald should see some playing time as well. Don't forget him. During winter practice, Sugar Bowl practice, Jelani McDonald was moved full-time to safety. Now, they like to cross-train their guys, but he was moved full-time to safety. So CJ, when you're talking about Xavier Filsaime and Michael Taft, Derek Williams, you got to add his name in there too, because I think that's going to be a good one. This is from Lane Seawright. Any chances for the new recruits to start in the secondary, Derek Williams style? CJ, Rod, I love how Texas slow-baked some of the players like Derek Williams and like Manny Muhammad. They didn't just throw them to the wolves, right? They let them kind of go in and bake. Is that just because Texas has enough talent to do that? Is that the right way to do it? It felt right to me. Rod or CJ, either one of you want to take that, whether or not that felt right to y'all as well?
Rod, I'll let you go, but I've got a thought on this.
Go for it. You go first, CJ.
Go ahead, take it.
I like how they approached it. I think you don't want to throw young DBs into the fire right away. As often as you can withhold freshman defensive backs from being on the field, I think you do that early on in their career. I'm a big proponent of not allowing, or not really not allowing, but kind of withholding and limiting the number of meaningful snaps and opportunities to be exposed early on in their careers. I think it's one of those positions, obviously like quarterback as well, where it's a big mental game for defensive backs. And Rod, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but if you get on the field and you things don't go your way early on, that can stick with you a little bit. And so I think Texas did a good job of throwing guys in there for a series or two, for a quarter or two at times early in the year. I don't want to call a guy out, but you look at Austin Jordan early in his career against Kansas, I think, he gets beat for a 65, 70-yard touchdown, and I don't think we ever saw the same confidence from Austin Jordan again, dating back to, his entire time with Texas. So it's one of those things where you really have to be physically ready and, more importantly, mentally ready if you're going to be a young cornerback on the field at a school like Texas, because you're going to be tested very often. So I like how Texas is easing their guys in. Toward the end of the year, you hear about it all the time with coaches. By weeks 10, 11, 12, conference championship weeks, you're no longer a freshman. You've been there the entire season. That's no longer, the MO about who you are. You've been through it for 4 months. You know everything from the ins and outs of what it takes to be a college football player. You're no longer a freshman. You can take the leash off a little bit. You can let the dog roam around the backyard without, a fence if you need to. But that's kind of how I approach things. You got to ease them in early, throw them, specific, drive, series, possessions, whatever it may be, just to make sure that mentality will be there and that mental confidence isn't shattered by 1 or 2 bad plays early on in the career. I think that's really important. So anytime I can, I like having the opportunity to sit back and have these guys learn a little bit, take their humblings in practice, because Texas is going to have very good receivers, and those battles in practice are going to get them up to that standard in which they see in a week in and week out basis. So That's where I stand. I don't know if you share the same kind of sentiment there, Rod, but I've always kind of been if you don't have to play them right away, it's never a bad thing to have them, get those mental reps on the sideline, get the film study up, and obviously practice reps as well.
Yep. I think you just said it at the end. If you have that luxury, right? If you don't have to play them. Yeah, it's great to be able to redshirt guys and, let them sit and adapt and acclimate and work out some of the bad technique that they've learned, some of the bad programming they've learned, work their eye discipline, cultivate that skill set. I totally agree with you. Texas got to that point, when I was there probably late in my career, when you got your Cedric Griffins of the world and your A. Rosses of the world, you could redshirt those guys and you had that luxury. But when I first got to Texas didn't have that luxury, right? So, I probably started 3 games my freshman year. I think Nathan Vasher started early on when he's got there. So I think that's why you got Derek Williams being out there, because he ended up being your best coverage safety as a freshman. And I do believe coverage skills translate really early to the next level, whatever next level you're going to. You're a natural cover guy, which Derek Williams is. All the other stuff, that's what you're talking about, CJ. You got to learn that. That's the student of the game you're talking about. Take some time, and then by the end of the year, that guy's considered a starter for you. So, yeah, if Texas has that luxury, then they can do that. If, you got a Malik Muhammad and you got a Terrence Brooks coming in, if Ja'Day Barron's comes back, you will have a luxury. Taft Daddy's back there with you. Maybe you will have a luxury of being able to slow play some of these guys and develop them just like you did there. And you'll have Derek Williams, of course, and you'll be able to do that. That's ideally what you want, as CJ mentioned. They don't always have that luxury. That's ideally what you'd like.
I think I keep thinking back to this. I understand what CJ's getting at, and I understand what you're getting at. You don't want them to have look bad and then lose faith that they're good players.
Exactly.
Right? You don't want them to over evaluate themselves based on, oh man, I'm never going to get it. This is never going to work for me. I go back to something Cedric Griffin told us on this program, by the way. And that's this. He said, because I don't know if you remember this or not, but boy, one Texas OU game when Cedric Griffin was, I think, a redshirt freshman, Rod. Mark Clayton, the OU receiver who was a senior at that time, he lit him up. Yeah. He lit. Now, Ced Griffin, I think some DBs are different than other DBs. Some DBs need as many reps as possible and need to be, they need to see it several times before they get put on the field. Other DBs, they're going to fight and claw no matter what. Yeah. And Ced Griffin, he got abused in that Texas OU game. A lot of DBs did, though, to be fair. It wasn't just Ced Griffin. That was back when OU scored 60 a couple of years in a row.
Yep.
And so my point being, though, is that Ced was one of those guys that would have rather had that experience than not.
Yeah.
I think it kind of depends, guys.
Yeah.
I thought about that. I think you want to bring them along to make sure they have enough playing time so that when it is their time to go full throttle, it's their time to go and they're ready for that. And that's kind of where I lean. Like, was Cedric Griffin really ready to go full throttle as a redshirt freshman? He probably was for everybody but OU and Mark Clayton.
It's a good point.
Yeah. 8 catches for 190.
Yeah. You get my point, right? It's like, I think it's a little different. Hey, I want to slip back to recruiting a little bit. A couple of things. Any possible junior day commits? Longhorns are hoping to get 30-plus guys on campus, maybe 40 on January 20th. They've also got guys coming in January 27th. A couple of guys from Mobile, KJ Lacey, the quarterback, as well as Ryan Williams, the wide receiver 2024 from Saraland. I want to mention this as well as I can. Junior day commits. There are several that are possibilities. Here's what I expect, and I know, CJ, you've talked to some of these guys as well. In years past, it's kind of been a slow burn for Texas. Because Steve Sarkisian, other than when Arch committed and then you had all those offensive linemen domino one after another, it had always been a slow burn. Now, Texas is sitting in the catbird seat comparatively. It's going to change. There's going to be some junior day commitments, and that's if the guys show up that are supposed to show up and Texas really wants them, they're going to go ahead and accept some if they get pushed that way. There's no doubt in my mind. So whether that's Jordan Davison, the running back out of Mater Dei, or Elijah Barnes, Bo Barnes out of Skyline, Texas desperately wants him. He's set to visit on January 20th. All of those guys, Riley Pettijohn set to visit, another linebacker. So it'll be interesting whether that's the case or not. I also want to mention this, Kabir Hussein, Terry Bussey flipping to LSU. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion if he does not end up at some place like Alabama. I believe he's now going to still take an official visit to Alabama as well. All right, let's get on to some other questions and thoughts here. This one from Rilo Hookham. Bobby, are we concerned about a leadership void? Rod, can you speak about how big of a deal it was for Jay Witt to give up his number 4 to an incoming freshman, CJ Baxter? I know for me, my number was a huge deal. What do you think about that, Rod? Not a lot of people realize that he gave that up for an incoming freshman.
Okay.
You wouldn't have given it up, would you, Rod?
No. I'll just say this because I wouldn't have given up my number probably. I don't know if I'd have given it up. But I'll say this. Depends on what number was available for me to get. I'll just say this. I recently went on an old man rant with my friend about this too. Guys have no pride in numbers anymore, though. They don't care. They don't care like we did. They don't. Jay Witt changed number like 4 times. Xavier Worthy changed number like 3 times. We used to get a number like, all right, I got to make number 20. I got to make this number famous. Like Chip the equipment guy. Shout out to my man Chip. He'd give you a number. I want number 2. They gave me number 21. Tim Brewster said, Al, you don't want to be number 2. You want to be 21. That's how people know, man. Dion already made it famous. So he already just hustled me and he taking 21, even though I was told I was getting number 2, but I'm sure other guys were told that too. So I got number 21, which I was fine with. I wanted to be Dion, so 21 that fit. But I had pride in that number though, right? These guys, most of those guys on that campus, they changed numbers a few times now. It's a new era, it's a new phenomenon. So yes, usually for us, old school, the person in the chat, we were like, hey man, it's tough for me to give up my number. It's sacred to me, right? It means something to me. These guys, it don't mean as much to them. When they get to the league, it might. But in college, they change numbers. Stars change numbers a lot. They do. And I don't know, my boy Sims changed numbers a lot. Sims was like 3 different numbers. Remember, he kept changing them. Guys, some guys, it doesn't matter as much. I'll just say this about Jay Witt, and I said this about Jay Witt. I can't wait to talk to Jay Witt. I'm supposed to get a chance to interview him with the 3rd and Longhorn crew at one point. And I can't wait. He's a culture bearer. This guy sacrificed a ton. And I think this is what the culture bearer is about, right? Rojo was that prior to this season where he carried the burden of the culture with him all the time. He's a walking testimony for everybody in their locker room about sacrifice. Hey, I wanted to play quarterback. I could have left. I could have left and played quarterback somewhere else. All right. I could have, left and been the number 1 running back somewhere else, but I didn't. All right. I stayed here. I wanted to build something. And even Jay Witt said it. And I don't know. I got to ask him because I've been saying it for 10 years. And I believe I was the first one to say it. But in his goodbye farewell video to Longhorn fans, he said, I'm proud that I came to play for Texas, not at Texas. I've been saying it for a long time.
Those were your words. No, I think we had people comment on it, Rod. That's exactly. We want guys that are great players, but that come for both things.
Yeah, they come to play for Texas. And he said that. He said, I came to play for Texas. He could have left and started anew. Nobody would have blamed him. Jay Witt, take care of yourself. That's what you got to do. He didn't. He stayed. And he sacrificed, right? He changed his diet. He changed his pre-practice routine. He had to come in early. He had to stay late because he realized I have to warm up differently and warm down. His body, I think his family, was there a bunch of power lifters or whatever? He got power lifters in the family. And he had to change his workouts. He was a guy that used to work out like the family did. I got to work out differently because I can't stay healthy throughout the season. He changed all that stuff just so he could play. And even when he played, he wasn't the number 1 target. He wasn't number 2. He wasn't number 3. He was probably, honestly, sometimes the running backs were ahead of him. He was like 5, 6, all right, on the scale of targets. Yeah, he didn't complain. What you do without the football, that shows how much you love your teammates. And he loves his teammates. He blocks, he hustles. that guy, man, he embodies the culture. He's a walking testimony to it. He's a culture bearer. So I agree with the person in the chat. Who's going to take over? Because we had Rojo, who was extraordinary in that respect. And then you had Jay Witt, who's extraordinary. Guys see him walking through the locker room and they think to themselves, am I doing enough? Am I sacrificing enough? Am I doing everything that I can be to be the best version of myself to help the team be the best they can be? Am I doing enough? He's that guy. You need a lot of those guys walking through the locker room where they stayed so damn late. And you're like, hold up, man. How late you been in for a what? Hour and a half? Yeah, well, I was putting in some more time in. I went to the training room for a little while. Those guys, trust me, man, they make a difference. They make a difference. I remember being one of those guys. Like, now y'all gonna watch me. Watch me. I'll show you how it's done. I'll show you the standard that's set. And so I'm not worried about it. I'm not saying I'm stressed about it, but that's a hell of a standard to live up to. And by the way, they ain't always got to be the best player. Rojo wasn't the best player on the team. Jay Witt ain't the best player on the team. Hell, they ain't the best players in their own room. But but by the way they carry themselves, their habits, Jay Witt had to change his habits. That's all culture is. Habits. Every day. Habits. What do? Make your bed, get up, attacking everything the same way. It's habits, man. Let's say Rojo was cleaning up the running back room, picking up trash. Those are habits. Some of them you can't teach. That's just good home training. But some of them, guys, they learn those habits and they learn from other guys. So that culture is about habits, and the habits that Jay Witt had to change just so he could be available every day to his team, just so that he could, play in every game. And he played with such joy because he was just happy to be out. He was like, man, I'm just happy to be out here. I hadn't played a season of football in like 3 years. I'm just happy to be. He embodied that joy to play with too. Every time he caught a pass, oh man, the touchdown he had when he runs over to Bevo. I mean, he's going to be a fan favorite, and he should be. Longhorn fans should take care of this man for a time, for years to come, decades to come, because I don't know if this team would be where they were without the culture. Well, hell, he had to play in the TCU game. Literally, you would not be where you were. But figuratively, trust me, there are a lot of guys, young guys that learned, what it takes, the sacrifice, the selflessness, the commitment. They learned it by watching Jay Witt. And Jay Witt learned it probably by watching some of Rojo. And, that's what it takes. That's how it's passed down. I remember that.
I got to tell you this. This is I love when you talk about that. I feel the same way largely about Jaylen Ford this year. I feel like he led by example. Yeah, he was the guy. I mean, just so many good things. All right. Before I go to the next thing, I do want to get to this question about Jamari Caldwell. Also, comment on CJ Daniels, the wide receiver that's in from Liberty. I want to mention this because when I was in New Orleans, one of Maurice Blackwell's cousins, I believe it was, came up to me and introduced himself. And we were just talking about Jordan Whittington. So this is for people that are, I would say, I'm 54. So I'd say this little note is for people that are 55 and up. In the NFL, back when I was growing up, young kid, there were two guys from Cuero in the NFL. There was a running back named Alois Blackwell, who played at the University of Houston. Well, guess what? He's related to Maurice Blackwell from Cuero.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that's number one. Number two is from Cuero, there was a running back named Arthur Whittington, who played at SMU and then played for the Raiders and other teams in the NFL. He's related to Jordan Whittington.
Get out of here.
Both of them now. Your relatives played at SMU in Houston.
Wow.
Both those guys ended up at Texas.
How cool.
So thank you, by the way.
Wow.
I knew that about Blackwell and Whittington both being from the former guys, the Cowboy player and the Raider being from Cuero. I didn't know that Mo Blackwell's had family from Cuero, though.
That's cool.
He, of course, went to Arlington Martin High School, CJ. All right. Hey, this one, I want to get to this one real quick. Super chat from Justin Yarbrough. Appreciate you, Justin. If Barron returns, Jahdae Barron returns, and we pick up the DT from Houston, that's Jamari Caldwell, I believe the defense will be just as good, if not better, than this past season. And if AD returns, no reason why the team doesn't improve overall. I think, man, that's hard for me. That's really hard for me, and I'll tell you why. Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat were man-eaters this year.
Exactly.
CJ, I see you're shaking your head. You go for this one.
I mean, you hit it on the head. The two of them up front plus Jaylen Ford, you're losing seemingly the entire safety room as well besides Taffy and Williams. It's a lot that you're leaving from 2023 into 2024 on the defensive side of the ball. Texas has done a great job adding pieces from the portal and obviously in the 2024 class as well. But I don't think there's guys on the roster right now that you can point to and expect a Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat duo, and also in the linebacking room, what Jaylen Ford did, not only on the field production-wise, but as a leader in that room. That is a big piece Texas will be looking to replace as early as this spring. So it's going to be a tall task. I don't think it's, it's more a testament to what these guys did on their time or on the 40 acres during their time here. So than anything else, but I think that's a tall task to go out and, regardless of who you add, to say that this defense will be better than what it was. It was a very good defense. I think it was top 15, top 20 in scoring defense this year. All the metrics in terms of points per possession, everything along the lines of that, they were up in the top 15. It was a very good defense. It just clearly ran into a buzzsaw that was Michael Penix.
Here's the issue that I have with that is that you're saying, can it be better? I mean, you're talking about a team that just finished in the top 4. I mean, are you not? That's hard for me to say it can be better because you're losing all those receivers. You are keeping 4 of the 5 offensive linemen. You're losing Jonathan Brooks. So your offense, I think, is going to struggle to be as good as it was this year in some ways, although a third-year starter at quarterback should be better. I think, Rod, you agree with me on that? Quinn should be, just like he made a stretch this year, he should stretch into next year as well and keep improving.
Yeah, and the offensive line should be honestly, the offensive line should be dominant to the point where they should be a finalist and honestly win the Joe Moore Award. They should have that kind of ceiling. If the offensive line's that good, which they have the potential to be, by the way, and then Bobby's right about Quinn, then I'm not as worried about the weapons around Quinn because I think there'll be sufficient weapons. I think they'll be capable. Will they have breakout campaigns? That's another discussion altogether. But I think they'll be capable. But your offensive line will give Quinn time to make the right decisions and to find the receivers. And we know his accuracy is on point. As long as he's got time and he's not harassed, he won't get erratic in the pocket. And no matter who's the running back, Tashard Choice is a really good running back coach. I think you'll be able to find your way in the running game. But it'll be the offensive line that's the identity of the running game. So that is my hope. But if that doesn't happen, I think you could have some regression because I'm worried about the passing game, frankly. Just losing X-Man. Now, if A.D. Mitchell comes back, like I said, I'm less worried, but X-Man and J.T. Sanders and Jay Witt, as we just talked about, they were crucial in the passing game. On the defensive side of the ball, I just don't see – there's no way I see this defense being as good as it was last year. Like, I don't think you'll be as good against the run. Just, losing – listen, you're going to have 2 defensive tackles drafted in this draft, higher than you had them last year when you had 2 defensive tackles drafted as well. Unless you're replenishing that pipeline, which they're doing a decent job of, especially if they get the U of H defensive tackle. But man, I just feel like it's going to be tough not to feel the impact of that loss after 2 years of losing the depth at D tackle. Think about it, it's the depth that makes Texas unique at D tackle because they're rotating guys that are still NFL caliber guys. They were last season, and then this past season they were. I don't know if you're gonna have all those guys be NFL caliber guys this year. I do think Alfred Collins is. I think Vernon Broden's got that kind of Sunday skill set, but the guys behind them, right? This year you had Vernon Broden, Alfred Collins, you had Byron Murphy, Sweat, all NFL guys. Before that, it was Sweat and Murphy backing up Colburn, Ojimo, all NFL guys. This year, 2 NFL guys. What about the guys behind them? Are they also NFL guys? Maybe. You got the best D-line coach and D-tackle coach in the country to help you, but those are unproven commodities. And I'd feel arrogant just throwing out there, oh, yeah, they're going to be just as good as the other guys. Maybe they got a chance to.
I've got a take that I'm spitballing. I'm working it in my brain right now. I don't think the Texas defense will be necessarily better next year, but could it be that we see a little bit more explosive plays with the Texas defense? You look at the edge rushers. both of them returning. You're getting Trey Moore. You're adding Colin Simmons. Maybe a little more pressure on the quarterback getting home. The two cornerbacks with what I would consider the best ball skills on the team are going to be your two guys. I wouldn't say Jaron Thompson or Keaton Crawford, who, despite his almost heroic interception against Oklahoma State, was necessarily a ball hawk in the secondary. Ryan Watts only had one interception in 26 games as a Longhorn. Is there, a way that Texas, though soundly, might not be a better defense in 2024, but there is a path to them creating more negative plays and turnovers with the pure scheme and guys that they have on the field?
I like that. Honestly, I like that. I like that idea. That's good.
I think if there's a way for the 2024 defense to be better than 2023, it's with increased sack numbers and interceptions. And I think right now the people that you have on the outside at cornerbacks, Makuba joining the safety room as well, or that defensive back room as well, that's a guy who, finds the ball often. If Jade returns as well, around the football very often. I don't think while Texas lost, obviously, up the middle, a lot of pieces that were very, very good, I wouldn't necessarily say that they were at the positions where you see a lot of turnover-worthy plays from, the nose and the three tech. A middle linebacker, while Ford was very good, more so in 2022 than 2023 in terms of creating interceptions and turnovers. That could be kind of where my brain's going right now. I think that's the one path to saying, there could be a step up for the Texas defense in 2024.
Football theory, baby. I like that.
I just don't think there's, even with Trey Moore coming in too as another pass rusher, I'm having a hard time because I think, man, you lose two jewels, it's hard, dude. And a guy that was a solid guy like Jaylen Ford, I feel like those are tough guys to replace on defense. Doesn't mean Anthony Hill's not going to be a good player. To your point, they'll have more ball awareness guys, I think, at corner.
Yeah,
maybe I get that. Maybe it's safety as well to go along with Taffy next year. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, I want to ask y'all this one, and you, CJ. North Shore guys don't go to UT. Not going to happen. This is Devin Sanchez, the 2025 cornerback, committed to Ohio State over the weekend at the U.S. Army, or it's no longer the Army game, the All-American Bowl in San Antonio. I want to talk about Trey Owens and Ryan Wingo in that game momentarily. Anthony Smith as well out of Jasper. But that's true to a degree. Not a lot of North Shore guys going to Texas anymore. Corey Redding started it, and Joe Walker was in it, and there just hasn't been many lately. I don't know what the deal is down there in the water next to the ship channel in Houston.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. I mean, except when I was there back in the day, North Shore had a pipeline to Texas. I didn't realize that. Hey, trust me. Hey, Houston Lamar, DB high. I will keep the pipeline open, y'all. Don't worry about that, baby. And we good. We good there. I'll keep that open.
There's another one coming up at Lamar, by the way, Rod. I'm going to have you do a little.
Is it O-lineman?
No, D-line. All right, defensive back. I'm sorry. He's young.
Okay. Don't worry. I'll put something in their ear. Don't worry about that. I need to talk to Corey Redden about what's going on, because me and Rack and everybody in that pipeline, Anthony Cook, be keeping that pipeline open, baby. Yeah.
I love it. Hey guys, here's a question. By the way, talking about the pipeline, I got a text during the middle of this. Deshaun Elliott picks off Josh Allen, I believe. Gets an NFL pick tonight for the Dolphins. That's a good one for him. I'm happy for him. All right, here's one for Jerry Jones. I don't really think this is Jerry Jones, but we'll ask anyways. If you're an NFL GM, do you take Adonai Mitchell, or do you take Xavier Worthy? I'm going to go first. I'll take Worthy. And the reason why is because there are a lot of guys in the NFL that can do exactly what Adonai Mitchell is good at. Now, maybe not as good as him. He may be a number 2 or number 3 receiver and very good. There are few guys, his speed is rare, and that's Xavier Worthy. So I'm a little bit different. I know he's not a deep ball catcher, so I'm not going there. But his acceleration is special. What do you take? Do you take Mitchell or Worthy, CJ?
I actually like AD Mitchell just a little bit. I think he brings stronger hands to the point of reception. He obviously has a big body. I'm a sucker for guys that are what I call well-rounded receivers with a big body, with athleticism that can go up and get the ball, that can stretch the field vertically. I think A.D. Mitchell is a guy that can do all of that. He doesn't bring the same straight line speed, as you said, Bobby, as Xavier Worthy, which is going to be the big separator in terms of what makes him special at the next level. You know, I think we can all expect something around the 4.3s or very low 4.4s for that 40-yard dash, you know, in the combine for Xavier Worthy. But I love what A.D. Mitchell brings in terms of he's a guy that I think you can throw into any offense and see prosperous, you know, production. So
I think Worthy is more of a boutique player. I want to say that the right way, where you can use him a lot like a Jalen Waddle or a McCole Hardman, not a Tyreek Hill. He's a little bit different than that, but you get that speed that he just runs by people.
Yeah.
Right now, is he big enough to do that? Rod, what do you think on this? Mitchell or Worthy?
If I'm a GM, it depends on the system that my coach runs. The system my offensive coach runs. It's just plain and simple. And I hate to, if I'm cheating with answering that way, I apologize, Jerry Jones. But I mean, if you're a GM, that's what you got to think about, right? The scheme you're running. I think A.D. Mitchell would be ideal in certain scheme fits. I think in a system that's kind of like Sark's system, where you use a lot of pre-snap motion, where you're getting Xavier Worthy the ball on the move, targets to motion, where you can kind of hide him within the frame of the formation, where teams can't just put a press corner on him to take him away with press man coverage all the time. If you have a system like that, Xavier Worthy's your guy. Xavier Worthy's your guy. But if you don't have a system like that, and you just have more of a straightforward offense that just creates matchups, one-on-one matchups all the time, then A.D. Mitchell's probably your guy. If you just want a guy to go win a one-on-one matchup consistently, I think Xavier Worthy can do that, but the NFL is more of a press man league. And if you put him on the outside to play press man, I do believe with the right guy, you can take X-Man, I don't say take him away, but you can limit him and neutralize him. He's not Tyreek Hill, like Bobby just said. He's small, but he ain't. Tyreek Hill is more powerful of a speed guy, speed to power than Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy didn't have as much power with his speed burst as a guy like Tyreek Hill. So you want to get him the ball on the move already. He can play through contact, but you get him the ball on the move already, because I don't see him being able to break a lot of tackles. I think he can elude tackles. But in terms of breaking tackles, that's really different. So you want to try to avoid traffic with him. You want to give him the ball in space much possible, and certain systems do that better than others. And so I think it's all bad. If people have Kansas City taking A.D. Mitchell, if I'm Andy Reid, I want X-Men.
Yes,
I think Andy Reid's system fits more X-Men because it's more similar to a Sark system than it is to a kind of a straightforward system where you're just creating matchup advantages. So it depends on the scheme. And by the way, I do think that's for both of these guys. A lot of their success in the league is going to depend on the scheme they go to. That's a big part of your NFL success. A huge part of it nobody talks enough about.
All right, this one coming in from Lane C. Wright. Just like recruiting classes, spring ball is always great. What are the real indicators of improvements both in the offseason and with new guys? We expect spring ball. There's been no announcement, by the way, yet, but we expect spring ball to start again in March. So we'll be – the last 2 years, Sark has done it this way. He's actually started spring ball the week before spring break for the university. And so I think that would be the second week this year of March. So that gives you a general timeline. We're about 2 months out from that. But what are the real indicators of improvement in the off season and with new guys? That's a body development is one for me. I think that's always big.
Yeah.
Beyond that, acclimation. Like, Rod, you give me your take on this because you've watched enough practice and you've been to practice. It's almost like some guys, the light switch goes on like that, right? Yeah. Other guys, it takes a month for the light switch to go on, or it takes a year, right? Yeah. It did for JT Sanders in some respects, right?
Well, it's so much of it's based on the individual guys and the individual skill set. So it's hard to throw a blanket on, when you're going to see the indicators of improvement, because everybody's got different limitations, right? Rob B came in, I could run with your best players on your team as soon as I got there. Speed was not my issue. Some guys, they have to transform their bodies and they got to get faster, get more explosive. That wasn't something that was my issue. All right. So I had to work on being a student of the game. The mental intellect part of the game was something I had to work on and develop. All right. And that did take me a year. That did take me about a year and a half or so, just to kind of the speed of the game moving so fast, processing different things. What are my keys in different coverages, the keys on down and down. So for me, it was all mental. Some guys, they come in and they're mentally ahead of the game. They've been, they've been from programs where guys are watching film and the coaches are a little bit more advanced in their preparation, things of that nature. And that's fine too. And maybe those guys don't have the frame yet, right? Maybe those guys don't have the weight they need in different positions, right? You have what does Cedric Baxter need? Armor, right? He needs armor. He didn't have enough armor to take the hits and the pounding, down after down. So once you get him a spring, that's what these big challenges will be. All right, we got to put some armor on him. That weight, we want it to be positive weight. We want it to be muscle mass where he also carries it well. So he keeps his speed or even increases his speed with the muscle mass. That's the challenge for some guys. Right? It's like, all right, how do I keep my speed, but also put on 10 pounds of straight up armor? That's their challenge. So their improvement will be based on, all right, how quickly can they get to that? So for everybody, it's hard. Everybody's got and by the way, everybody gets their own plan. The strength and conditioning coach gives you a plan based on the coach's breakdown evaluation of you during the year, what you need to work on, how that translates to the strength and conditioning room, right? Strength and conditioning, and how that translates to the weight room. And then, you work with the strength and conditioning, you work with the diet. Now they have a dietitian. We didn't have that. Nutritionist, you go to training staff, because some guys, they've been injury prone. Their big issue is like, man, can you stay healthy through a season? A lot of guys who got that, man. Can you stay healthy through a season? Then what's the reason? Right? Is it based on, you not having enough mass to deal with the punishment? Is it you not being flexible enough, or you tearing muscles here? I mean, guys, it is so thorough, and everybody's kind of plan and track is so different. And that's why it's up to these different kind of the different levels of the administration, different levels of the program to address every player individually, because coaches can't just do it. The trainers can't just do it. And I'm glad they got dietitians and nutritionists now. They didn't have that, guys, when I was on campus. It was just Mad Dog out there saying, hey, you should eat some more salads. And it's like, okay, I mean, I'm serious, guys. I mean, that's now the guys they have meals that are prepared for each and every one of them, because this guy needs that. And they're way more advanced now than they used to be. And now I think it's just kind of based on every individual's, skill set, every individual's own physical limitations and challenges.
So let me try to recap something, because he was talking about real indicators, and armor was a great way to put it, man. What a great, that's just that's exactly what you're talking about. You want him not to get nicked up.
Yep.
Like he did all year, right?
Yep.
And you do that with the right amount of weight, et cetera. So that was good. That's a real sign of improvement. Play speed is another real sign of improvement. That's what you're talking about, Rod. Yep. You could run fast, but your play speed
was slow. I was slow to the ball.
You needed to be a 33 and you were a 45 or back, whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like, why am I slow to the play? I'm faster than that guy, but I was slow to process. Exactly right. Yeah.
And then there's the last piece, and I want to add this one because I think this is also what you're talking about. It's the understanding of the whole picture. Like, after you understand what you're supposed to do at your position, how does your position fit within the bigger scheme? I think that matters a lot on defense.
Yes.
Offense is a little bit, you're supposed to go block this guy over here. You need to run this route to clear this guy out. Defense it's okay. They're switching things up. They're moving into this coverage. We've got to push this linebacker over here. It goes, it's armor, it's play speed, and then it's the understanding of the big picture.
And Bobby, to add to the understanding thing, the reason that is so much more important on defense, because offense, they have very strict rules they have to operate by, right? You got to run this route at this depth, right? The footwork of the offensive lineman, time with the punch and hand placement, man, it's really, really exact. And the more exact it is, the better the execution. On defense, though, what you need to understand are the rules that bind the defense, right? That bind the structural integrity of the defense. And that'll let you know if you have freedom to be able to improvise within the defense, right? That's when my man Amar Brooks can go, hey, Robbie, I got your back on the deep safety here because actually I got no responsibilities, but we've been scouting this dude in this formation. They love the double post. So I got your back on the deep post, undercut it. I got this. And then we can freestyle, we can improvise because we all know our responsibilities. As long as I take care of my responsibility, but sometimes the formation, the personnel grouping will allow you flexibility. Remember the Bama game where Jerry Thompson gets the pick? Remember that? He had no responsibility. He was just sitting there. He's like, I got no coverage. I'm just the free man. I'm sitting here. That was based on the formation he was given, the amount of receivers on the route. He had nothing to do. All right, go find work there. So my point is, within the defense, based on the rules of the defense, you will find room to operate, improvise. I remember it was Charles Amena who did it in the Tech game, I think it was, and they ran a quarterback sneak. And he said, man, they ran the quarterback sneak and they got into center. He said, every time Tech got into center, they ran the quarterback sneak. So he went from the defensive end to the edge, came inside to the A gap. Go watch him. He's like, I knew I could do it. He said, I had the freedom to do it. He was like, I knew I had that freedom to operate. He said, I basically kind of let my teammates know this is what I'm about to do. So y'all need to have my back. They have his back. The defense is wild like that, where if you really, really understand it and know it, then you get some flexibility and some freedom within the defense to improvise. But it can only be done that way if everybody is on the same page. So everybody's got to understand the rules, and then everybody's got to understand, okay, so, hey, guys, I'm going to loophole it here. I'm loopholing it. Just so you know, I'm going to do this. I'm supposed to do that, but I got that base covered. I got that responsibility covered. But I believe this formation, this personnel grouping, they're going to give us this clue. So I'm going to improvise and operate outside of the rules a little bit here. It's, oh, man, that's when you get into, that's the matrix. That's the matrix right there. There you go.
All right. Good stuff, Rod. Hey, got some other questions we're going to get to. Got a couple more minutes here. Cisco Diaz, does Texas end at number 3 in recruiting? How much do these young guys coming in early help, considering how many players left? 18 plus 3 midtermers for the transfer portal. So 21 new players showing up in less than 10 days. It will help, Cisco. I mean, that's just the bottom line. How much it will help, I think we're going to find out more here in the next couple of weeks, or in the next couple of months. Hosey 11, mark it down. Quinn has the same sophomore to junior jump Colt had. If he has that,
man,
that's going to be a hell of a first year in the SEC.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, because that was one of the best jumps I've seen a quarterback make. Maybe, you know who had a similar jump? Joe Burrow.
Yeah, he did.
From his junior year to his senior year, he came in and like blew it out of the water. All right, speaking of quarterbacks, and this is where I wanted to leave it off here. Working Man, has anybody watched Trey Owens' deep ball? I watched the All-American games. Rod's done some film work. I know, CJ, you were down there for a practice or two. Look, I thought he was the most under control quarterback of that game. Went in third, but finished with a touchdown. His team drove his team to a touchdown. Got injured late. Looked like an ankle injury or something like that. But boy, he looked good. Ryan Wingo only saw him make one catch, but he split a couple of defenders and
grown man catch.
That's what I texted you guys right when I saw that. Go, he's a dude.
Yeah,
yep.
That was that kind of play. CJ, you haven't talked as much about Trey Owens as Rod and I have this to the audience. Tell people what you think Texas is getting in Trey Owens and Ryan Wingo now that you went and seen him as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been a big fan of Trey Owens for a few years now. It's one of those things where you go see him play and you understand why Texas wanted him so quickly in that class. Big body, big arm, but great finesse, great touch and accuracy on his passes, something that I don't think you necessarily can really, like Rod says, you can either rush the passer or you can't. You can either cover or you can't. You either understand when and where to put touch on the passes or you don't. That's not a thing that, I think really comes easily for developmental quarterbacks, and that's something that Trey Owens possesses right now, which is very encouraging to me. I think we kind of pinned him up close to what was it, Ben Roethlisberger last week?
Yeah,
as like a loose comparison, just in the sense of a big body who's not I wouldn't say a plus athlete, but a guy that is very difficult to take down in the pocket and can maneuver around very well, evade sacks while maintaining eyes down the field. That's kind of the biggest plus to me. When the pocket does break down, very, very often does a play continue. I think that's very encouraging, for a guy who may not have an immediate path to the field. If you already have that in your back pocket, that goes a long way. And so I'm very encouraged about that by Trey Owens. The deep ball is one of the best facets of his game as well. I know Owen Carter, his wide receiver at Cy-Fair, who's committed to Rice, was, I think they had one of the best connections in the state, quarterback to wide receiver. So big time promise right there from Trey Owens. I'm a big fan of his. The deep ball is really special.
Hey, the thing that I would say about him is, one is you can't appreciate his size. I mean, he is 6'5". He was bigger than some of the linemen in the All-American game from a height perspective. Rod, I mean, legitimately, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was legit. He was bigger than some of those dudes, and you could tell longer than them too. He's not and I always think it's interesting. Here's a guy that was the 2-time offensive MVP of his district. And some people didn't even have him a 4-star.
Right.
I mean, that is a tough district, guys. I mean, all the Cypress schools down in Houston, that is a tough district. So I think that what did you see out of Ryan Wingo? Because you came back gushing about him after watching him in workouts. And then he didn't have the biggest game of the receivers out there, but he did catch the only ball really that came his way.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it very briefly just now. That one catch, the after the catch effort was tremendous.
Yeah,
I mean, it was 3rd and 7, I think, and he needed 7. He caught it around 5 yards down the field, and he got 9 with 2 guys draped all over him. That's a grown man play, and that's something that translates. It's impressive.
It translates. You're right. The word translate makes sense because he didn't overpower those guys who were elite DBs, by the way.
Right.
Like those weren't little sister of the poor DBs. They were guys that had extra juice to them. He split them, Rod, and saw what he had to get and got it. It was a nice play. It was a grown man play. I definitely appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Sunday nights on Texas Football, Longhorn Livestream. We've got coffee and football coming up for you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We've got Talking Ball tomorrow night with Rod and CJ. They're going to go after it again. But for now, that'll do it for tonight. Thank you for all the super chats. Thanks for joining in. Hope you guys had fun. We had fun talking a little football. Finish it up with a little Sunday night football in America or whatever NBC calls it. All right, Rod, CJ, you guys have fun. Everybody else out there, let's have fun together. Hook them, man.
Hook them.
How about them Cowboys?
Hey, what about the Texans?
Hey, there you go.